Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to This Week in People, supported by my friends over at PIN, the employee communications platform for the distributed workplace. So, let's dig right in. This headline probably had your head spinning. This week was about, this article was actually published about a week ago, and it is definitely one of those cases where you should read the article before you rage tweet the headline. Yes. Headline is rage tweet inducing. In the article, they actually make a case that it should be something that the employers actually, should be covering to help recuperate some of the money that has gone into the local economies, that is no longer going to local economies from employees who are no longer going into work. So, don't know if this will go anywhere, but I was certainly guilty of seeing this headline and being filled with rage, and then reading the story and realizing, okay, maybe a little less ragey. Don't think it's going to go anywhere, but probably something that may have come across your radar this week. This article from Slack is actually a new resource they put together on an ultimate guide to remote meetings in 2020. So this is our world for many of us right now. Slack, as you might imagine, has got a pretty good sense of running optimal processes in remote environments, and so this resource really goes into a lot of aspects running successful team meetings, successful one-on-ones. Lots of really good advice there for many of you who are up and running with distributed and remote work right now, but I think we can all optimize how we're getting that done. The next article I want to share is something from HBR, actually, around how HR can use data, have built fairer cultures based on data. And they had some really interesting points, I think 7 key points throughout the article that really got into some specific ways that HR can actually use data for good and making a case for using data for good. So I think that that's a really important, particularly in our HR departments these days where we have massive amounts of data. How do we actually use that? And there's a whole field around ethical data application and use. So for those of you especially that aren't super well versed in data applications and ethical considerations with data, great article for you to shore up your understanding there a little bit. My friends at Gitlab are in the news again. This time they actually are the focus of a case study from the Journal of Organizational Design, actually documenting their remote and distributed practices. So hat tip to Darren Murph and the whole team over there. They've been doing a tremendous job from the get-go, way before the pandemic, about sharing their practices, and that has been indispensable for practitioners during the pandemic as many people have navigated to moving to remote. Speaking of Darren Murph, there's also a Fast Company, this article about the rise of the head of remote work, which is Darren's title at Gitlab. But something that we're starting to see a lot more of as more companies realize they're going to be in at least hybrid, if not fully distributed environments for the longer haul. And so this role gets into some aspects. This article gets into some of the aspects of the role. They specifically actually get into a position that Facebook had posted and break down some of the requirements for Facebook, at least for their particular position. So for those of you that are thinking about hiring a head of remote or just curious about that role, great article to help you get a little bit better understanding of what that role actually involves. And so I'm a huge fan of Spotify. I'm a huge fan of their CHRO, Katarina Berg. I'm a huge fan of their product, right? So I'm probably fanboy sounding right now, but I've always admired their approach to HR. And I think Katarina, to me, as you talk about redefining HR, she embodies that next generation people leader. And they've really set the standard for career sites. They launched their new career site this week. And it's fantastic. As you might imagine from Spotify, the UX is outstanding, the navigation and flow, the imagery, white space, all of that. As a design nerd, I dug that. But I also really dug the content. You can tell they were being really thoughtful around how they were creating the content for the site, from talking about racial equity to talking about the interview process and what that looks like to the culture. So it's also really calibrated for all things 2020 in terms of remote work, in terms of racial equity and particular programs that they're getting involved in to strengthen that within the organization. So definitely recommend you check that out. You'll probably have career site envy, and maybe this will help serve as some inspiration for any of you out there that are going through career site redesigns, particularly factoring in all things 2020. And the last thing I want to share with you all as we wrap up this broadcast is this is Redefining HR. So for those of you that follow me know that I have my first fully authored book, Redefining HR, is coming out in January. A lot of people have asked me, like, what is redefining HR to you? What does it actually mean? And I realized that I probably need to create a piece of content that actually conveys my views towards redefining HR and the evolution of the field of HR and people operations, and really kind of what the foundation of what this book is all about. So I am going to leave you with that brief 1-minute video so you can get a feel for what redefining HR is all about. And just a quick programming note. In the US, we have our Thanksgiving next Thursday. So next week, I am off. I am taking a long weekend to spend some time with my family and eat ridiculous amounts of food, probably drink too much, and certainly take a little break from the internet, which will be nice. So I'll be back in 2 weeks. Thanks for tuning in. And with that, I'm excited to share with you, this is Redefining HR.
The events of 2020 put a bright spotlight on the field of HR. We've been tasked with leading organizations through a global pandemic, forcing many of us to shift our operations to remote, seemingly overnight. The reckoning with racism sparked emotions and long overdue pleas for social justice and equity within our society and our companies. We're navigating this and more while carrying the legacy stigma of human resources many of us have long outgrown. The reality is our outdated practices, organizations, and thinking no longer serve us. It's time we take control of our future. Redefining HR goes deeper than what we call ourselves. It speaks to our mindset, our impact. It means building agile practices that can adapt to the volatile times we face, shedding practices that no longer serve us, and embracing more inclusive, data-driven practices built with HR and business acumen. It's time to step out of the shadows of past perceptions and build anew. It's time to redefine HR.